Welcome to another episode of Prime Time. I've got Nick beside me, Dad on the bench. Another great week of footy, AFL and Rugby League, but it was good to finally get back to watching a full week of NRL.
AFL, NRL, watch the full week of footy, some tight games, tight races coming down to the wire for the AFL and NRL, so it'll be interesting next couple of weeks.
Some tight finishes this week, a couple lashes out at the officials again. Tim Sheen's came out officials.
That's going to happen.
There was vision of Jack Wyden coming out. There's going to be tight games, there's going to be pressure calls being made, but it's always good to see. As always, we start off each episode with a fan question. Dad, what's the fan question this week?
The fan question is Jarome Luai in the wrong?
Is Jarome Luai in the wrong? Well, the story is a journo came out and said that he bumped into Jarome Luai after game 2. What's this journo's name? What is it?
Michael Kairouz?
Kairouz?
Who cares? No one really cares.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's come out and said that he said to Jarome Luai, "You're not a dickhead, so why do you act like one?"
And this is in response to Jarome Luai putting on his story after game 2, "You're all got to go to work next week." So now this journalist has supposedly gone up to him after game 2, had a word to him, organised a meeting with him at the Panthers Stadium after a training session.
Well, he's organised to interview him in Penrith.
Yeah.
Right? He's gone to Penrith. Jarome Luai says, "No, I'm not interviewing with this flog. I don't want to see him."
I don't want to see this scrub. He's basically just called me a dickhead, so why would I want to talk to him? I understand Jarome Luai here. Now this guy's besmirching his good name on a podcast with Buzz Rothfield, trying to make a name for himself.
No, the journo's come out and saying, "Oh, he's a cry," or whatever it is. Jarome Luai's responded and put him on his Instagram story and wrote Gronk, put Ratatouille next to him with tears coming down his face. I back Jarome Luai here.
I say he's definitely not in the wrong here at all. A journalist has come out against him, and with his platform, he's responded to him. And now this guy's a journalist. He's got every reason to lie, so I wouldn't trust him at all. So I'm with Jarome here. This guy's a rat journo, and I'm calling him a Gronk.
I'm not saying he's a liar, but I'm just saying I agree with Jarome Luai here. Why would you want to sit down and be interviewed by a guy who would probably knife you anyway? And why would any player want to trust any journo anyway? Especially nowadays when they're just trying to get them for clicks and try and spin a story on them. If this guy's going to insult him and call him a dickhead, why would he want to give you his time anyway? I back Jarome Luai, and it's unpopular to say, but Jarome Luai is one of the most entertaining players off the field. As good as a player he is on the field, for him to lash out at people in the media like this, no other player does it, and it's refreshing to see.
And it's a double standard. Why is the journalist allowed to call him out, but as soon as Luai puts up a story just responding to him, he's the one in the wrong?
Michael Kairouz is a Gronk, and I think Jarome Luai, there's got to be some people to back it. There were some players. Josh Alawai came out and commented, "Yeah, what do you expect?" So you can't be crying for sympathy when you call the guy a dickhead.
And I do like Luai putting a face to the name. All these journalists put out articles. Finally, there's a face to the name. Everyone can see this guy and see him as a Gronk.
Yeah, there we go. Unpopular Jarome W there. Jarome Luai W. But as always, each week we give our teams of the week. Our team of the week this week, Nick, who was yours?
For me, the team of the week was the Sharks. They went to Perth. I didn't give them a chance. I saw them play last week. They got smashed. The Rabbitohs, who are supposed to be one of the teams to beat, they dominated in the whole game from start to finish. Latrell looked out of place. Cody Walker didn't look good. And I got to credit the Sharks for doing that. They won convincingly. And as a team going forward now, I think they actually are a real premiership threat.
Well, the Rabbitohs coach came out and said they have to actually start having a good look at themselves and what they want to do going into the finals. Because this was supposed to be the game that would launch them with momentum into the finals.
Well, you said last week South's premiership favourites are going to see them in Penrith.
I didn't say premiership favourites. I would have thought this would be the game that would start turning heads. Latrell would turn on, but he didn't. He was switched off the whole game. Did you see his tackle attempt to Sione Katoa? He looked like he just didn't want to be there.
I mean, that's what happens when you fly 5 hours to Perth. Why are you taking a game to Perth?
But I'm saying if Souths really want to be premiership contenders, they need Latrell to be on. And I think based off his performance last week, he's going to have a big one this week. He can't go missing.
I think Jason Demetrio needs to start not coming out and
putting the players on notice in press.
Oh yeah, in press. Well, I think he's been a bit too critical of his players, and I think the players aren't really happy with him. Yeah, they're getting offside with him, mate. I mean, there's talk now that he might not have a job next year. So, especially if they don't make the top 8. I'm telling you, the torch will be on.
Well, they're a team that should make the 8.
So the blowtorch will be on.
We'll get into that. My team of the week, again, back to back, the Penrith Panthers. They got it last week. They're getting it this week. They went up against a kind of depleted Melbourne Storm team.
No Jarome Hughes. They were expected to win. The game was in Penrith. No one expected Melbourne to
But
win.
I feel like they've just been clinical. And like I said at the start of the show, Jarome Luai is not getting the respect he deserves. Even what he's doing off the ball, when he has the ball, he looks a bit more electric. He's elusive. And then you got Nathan Cleary. They're going to be firing going into the finals. Dylan Edwards, I expect him to have another big, back end of the season going into the finals.
We asked last week, who are the teams that can beat Penrith? Because I don't think Melbourne full strength can beat them. Dad, who do you think can beat them?
Look, at this stage, only the Broncos. I think it's a two-horse
race?
Two-horse race, yeah. Two-horse race at this stage.
Well, initially I was saying maybe South if they're at full strength, but they don't look like it. Cronulla are too up and down of a team. I don't think they can go up against a Penrith.
Warriors, you're not going to trust them
Warriors,
in the finals.
They're a coin flip on exactly in the finals. So it just looks like it's a Brisbane-Penrith
race. And I'm taking Penrith 10 times out of 10 there. They're just a much better team.
Okay, what about our player of the week? Who was your player of the week?
Kalen Ponga again this week. Scored a try, 2 try assists, 9 tackle breaks. Now, a game where they need to win to make the 8. They got a lot of momentum going.
They weren't too convincing tonight, so.
They weren't convincing. They were down most of the game. But Kalen Ponga, in the most electric way, broke the game open for the Knights and won them the game. So he's easily my player of the week.
Okay, my player of the week is going to Pat Carrigan.
2 tries in 2 weeks.
2 tries in a row. He went from not scoring a try in his 73, 74 games to scoring back-to-back tries. Really putting Alex Twal on notice, saying, I can go back-to-back. What can you do?
So pressure's back on Twal now.
He is one of the best forwards in the comp, and he shows it week in, week out. He's going to be a pivotal player for the Brisbane Broncos if they want to be a serious threat in the finals, and I think he'll carry them going into the finals, particularly that pack.
Who do you take, Dad? Pat Carrigan or as a lock? Who would you want in your
We've
team?
done player head-to-heads before. They went up against each other in Origin. As a lock right now, who are you taking?
Because they're the top 2 teams. They're probably their top best forwards. Who are you taking?
Oh, it's pretty tough. I mean, look, Pat Carrigan probably for me.
Does more for his team.
Does more for his team.
Probably a bit more in defence, a bit more in attack.
Probably like for me, Pat Carrigan, the talk on the field, the way he talks, the way he
motivates players. He's very pivotal for the Penrith Panthers too. He's pretty much a front rower halfback. You know what I mean? I'm sure he's talking a lot in attack too, but I just think Pat Carrigan has been better.
Okay, good.
Well, I mean, if you look at State of Origin, when Isaiah Yeo came off the bench, he was far more effective than starting in those first 2 games.
I didn't even watch Game 3, so I didn't even know.
Yeah, we're in England. No, we're long gone. I think we're in Mykonos at the time.
Dead rubber.
It was a dead rubber. Who wants to watch a dead rubber? Okay, but talking about Origin players, Ben Hunt still seeking a release from the Dragons at the moment.
I didn't even know you could get a release this late into the season.
Well, apparently the cut-off is August 30, okay, which I don't even understand. Why even have a cut-off anyway? You pretty much played the whole season. Well, there's 2 rounds to go.
There's 4 rounds left. It used to be June 30.
It's pretty much the cut-off is finals.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. If you're a top 8 team and you're a bottom 8 team, what's stopping you from swapping players?
You could pretty much be just on the lookout to say, who can we pick up going into the finals? It's going to accelerate our chances.
Last year, Melbourne Storm picked up David Nofaluma just before the semi-finals.
Yeah, that was good, but he was also playing in the West Tigers, which is kind of similar. But David Nofaluma is a winger. Ben Hunt is a pivotal $900,000 plus
a
season half. So it's completely different. He's still seeking a release. He doesn't want to be at the Dragons. I don't anticipate he'll be there next year if this is the case. But which club would be best to pick up Ben Hunt going into the finals now?
I mean, if you're any club in the top 8, you'd be seeking to sign him, just for the rest of the season at least. But really, the best fit for him is the Brisbane Broncos. He's played there. We said it before. They need probably a hooker that can steer him a bit better than Jesse Walters. Nothing against Kevin Walters' son, but I just don't think
Is he going to be wanting to play hooker or is he going to want to play in the halves?
He'll want to play either. I think he just wants to win a comp. That's probably what his mindset is. I want to leave the Dragons. I haven't played finals football in a couple of years now. I want to go to a team where I'm at best chance to win the comp. And really, that's Penrith or the Broncos. And I don't think Penrith have the cap space to sign him. I mean, if they did get him at hooker, that'd be unfair.
Well, Penrith did do it at 1 year with
Pangai Jr.
Tavita Pangai Jr. They got him going into the finals. I think he missed out on the grand final, though, which they still won without him regardless. But, I mean, they've done it before. I could see if they have the cap space. But the Broncos would be a great landing spot. I don't see him going to anywhere like the Warriors. He's expressed interest in going back to Queensland, back to his family. So,
and what is this though? Is this early release just for the rest of the season, like Nofaluma, or is it just a complete? I'm going to a new team.
I don't know. I think it's a release he wants out of the Dragons, but it's also a big boost for a team going into the finals.
Because there's no point now of him going to the Gold Coast Titans because the Titans probably aren't going to make the 8.
And I wouldn't make a play for him if I'm someone like the Rabbitohs, who it's not a guarantee you're going to be playing finals footy anyway. So it's really got to be one of the top 4 to top 6 teams So again, Melbourne could be a very good landing spot. What about Melbourne?
No, their spines. Harry Grant plays 80 minutes. So does Cam Munster.
In Origin, they have
What about
him
Cronulla?
starting and Harry Grant coming off the bench. Why wouldn't you want to bolster your team with one of the best players in the comp?
Any top 8 team would welcome him with open arms, especially just to play 40 to 60 minutes off the bench.
I'd say Melbourne. If they got off William last year, why not try and get Ben Hunt this year?
But ultimately, it's Brisbane.
Mate, look, possibly Cronulla. Cronulla are looking. I mean, Matt Moylan's struggling at the moment.
Playing, yeah.
Yeah, I know. He hasn't even been playing New South Wales Cup, so I don't even know what's going on there. I know he's even asked for an early release out of his contract. He's contracted for another year. But if I was Shane Flanagan, I would probably say to Ben Hunt, okay, we'll let you go for the remainder of this year, but you've got to come back.
A stipulation on it. So it's
stipulate.
Almost loaning him to another team, which would be fair.
I don't think that's what Ben Hunt wants. I think he wants out like anyone at the Dragons right now. Like I said last week, if they had an issue with no one going to the presentation last year, no one's going this year.
Apparently, Jaden Sullivan signed with the Tigers for $550,000 a season.
Well, the Tigers are also struggling, and they'll pay overs for anyone as well, like how the Bulldogs did over the last few years. Now, in State of Origin news, it's just been announced that in 2025 and 2028, State of Origin will be returning back to Perth.
Have you guys not learnt your lesson? Why?
Well, just looking at the games from this year, the Adelaide game, it was ruined. The crowd atmosphere was non-existent. It didn't feel like an Origin game, just hearing it on TV.
And it's game 1 as well. Like maybe send like game 2 or less. Let's just say like there's not as much of importance. A game 1, everyone's excited for. Send it to New South Wales or Queensland. Let the fans who actually enjoy it go to the game and actually like. That's what makes the atmosphere the best. The actual fans go there. No, the fans from Perth aren't as
enthused.
They're not as enthused as New South Wales fans.
Yeah, I understand if you want to grow the game, but Origin footy is best when it's in Queensland and when it's in New South Wales. There's nothing that matches going to Suncorp and listening to the crowd atmosphere, just being in and around it at the Caxton. And New South Wales the same. There's no home ground advantage for either team there.
They did the Perth game, a couple of years ago now? Was it as good as what was anticipated? The fans, everyone was making fun of the fans. It was like almost the fake fans that you do.
It's probably a commercial decision. They probably sell more tickets. If you're at an Optus Stadium, you're getting more than selling it at a Suncorp where you're capped at 40,000.
No, there's Suncorp's 50,000.
But still, I'm just saying.
Is it a commercial decision?
I don't know because I mean, if they want to, like, I'm happy with doing a double header in an NRL competition round, just like the weekend. That's a good idea.
What do you mean double header? What do you mean?
They had a double header game on the weekend. The 2 games in Perth, they had them back to back.
Oh, you're saying take round games.
Take round games, but like to take, this is the cream of the crop, the State of Origin. To take it to a city that they don't even like Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth. They're not rugby league cities. East Coast of Australia is where rugby league is played.
Rugby league fans, they will come down to Core Stadium to watch it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They'll go to Suncorp to watch it. We don't have to go over there to watch it. You're making it harder for actual New South Wales fans to go and travel and support the team.
And I mean, from when we were younger and watching State of Origin, it was always 2 games in one state, 1 game in the other, and it'll just alternate each year. I feel like that's lost as well. So if you're New South Wales, if you have 2 games in New South Wales, you're like, okay, maybe our chances are increase of winning this year. And you're more likely to go to a game. I'm not going to go to a game in Adelaide or Perth. It's too far. As an actual fan of the game, as much as I love the game, it's too far to go to Perth to watch State of Origin.
I agree. I don't think many people are asking for it. I understand they want to go to the game, but as a State of Origin fan, it's not on. And they've not learned their lesson because Adelaide was a bust for me.
I feel like the consensus after Adelaide was that it was disappointing and they should take the games back to New South Wales or Queensland. So they're just going against what everyone wants.
I guess we'll see what happens. 2025 is a long way away, and so is 2028. So it may not happen. Things may change. But in other news, Bradman Best has just been announced that he may be fighting on a no-limit boxing card.
He's signed with a new management company that's got ties to No Limit, so he's more than likely to have a boxing match. He's come out and said that he wants to have a fight sooner rather than later.
I don't mind this. I reckon he could scrap. I know there was talks. I know how the Sport did a funny thing on his grandmother getting into a scrap with a fellow Queenslander, or it was a bingo scrap or something like that. So I'm sure he could throw him.
Fighting runs in the family.
And not to say he's got the best fighting body, but I mean, he looks like he could go. He looks like another version of Paul Gallen, a New South Welshman. Again, no limit boxing. I think it's a good signing. You're going to see a lot more rugby league players getting into the boxing ring.
Well, I mean,
would be opponent. Who would be his opponent?
Well, that's a question.
Well, just throw Justin Hodges in there. Why not? I mean, he's fighted everyone else.
Junior Paulo, maybe just Queensland centre.
What about a cross-code fight. Maybe
I think Ben Hannett's thrown in the towel. You're going to have to find...
Dustin Martin.
Dustin Martin versus Bradman Best. I mean, they look the same.
I don't think many AFL players have any inclination to get into the ring.
I think they're a bit too much of a weight
Barry
difference.
Hall did it.
Yeah, but I'm saying Dustin's starting to enter the twilight of his career, so it might be a way for him to make money.
Nah, the star players don't get into the ring. I'm sorry. You're going to see Cooper Cronk getting into the ring or Cameron Smith. Star players don't really switch codes that much.
Yeah, that's
right.
You know what I mean?
You're more going to get Paul Gallen. He won one comp. Was he an actual star? He was a Cronulla star player, but it makes sense for him getting in the ring. He's got the head to get in the ring. He doesn't care if it gets scrapped around. Same as Bradman Best. You know what I mean? But you're not going to see Kalen Ponga get in the ring.
Nah,
it's too pretty.
I mean, maybe Connor Watson, I could see him with his knees trying to switch codes, trying to just switch it up.
Yeah, I don't know.
But for me, you've spoken to No Limit. You've said you've had talks about maybe getting in the ring. Would you fight Bradman Best?
I wouldn't fight Bradman Best. No, he's the weight class. He's a big man. I don't know. I'd maybe look at fighting some halves or something like that. If any halves want to get into the ring or hookers. But no, I think it makes sense. Look at Curtis Scott. Remember Curtis Scott?
Yeah.
Punched a copper or something like that. He was,
Allegedly,
and he's been in some trouble with the law, but he's been boxing. I've been seeing him on Brock Jarvis's story. I'm sure he's been looking to get in the ring. Maybe that's a first opponent.
Oh, okay.
Curtis Scott. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Both centres as well. Both New South Wales centres.
Okay.
So I wouldn't mind seeing that. But as the season winds down and closes towards the finals, everyone wants to know who's going to be making the top 8. It's going to be a very tight finish. It's really only those back-end teams that's really a contention.
Well, really, from 5th to 12th, the whole ladder could change.
Which is a lot. Which is a lot. I mean, I think you're going to need around 32 points to get into the top 8. So I want to ask you, who makes it into the top 8 from here?
We've done the maths. You're going to need 30 minimum to get into the 8, 32 most likely. The teams that most likely will end on 32 are the Rabbitohs. They've got the run home of the Dragons, Knights, and a bye with the Roosters. They can afford to drop a game.
Well, the Roosters are currently 12th right now.
And everyone's saying there's still mathematically a chance to make the 8.
They're currently paying $10, which I think there's a bit of value there.
But they're going to need
$126 to win the comp. So.
Okay.
They're going to need results to go their way, and they're going to need to win games. When you have that combination, you're asking for too much. So realistically,
but if you look at their run home, Dolphins, winnable game. Parramatta, winnable game. The Tigers, that's already a W. And then the Rabbitohs, who have been very hot and cold. So can the Roosters win most of their games? Yes, they can. But their attack hasn't been too good, in and themselves. They've been scoring very scrappy tries. Look at Manu scored his try last week, just taking it from dummy half down the blind side. Their attack isn't where it needs to be. I don't think they can make a run for it.
There's just too many teams that verse each other. They're going to cost each other points.
Okay, put a line through the Roosters.
Put a line through the Roosters. Put a line through Manly. They're not making it.
Manly, no turbo. Again, very hot and cold. Haven't been a convincing team. Ruben Garrick isn't convincing at fullback as well. So I'd put a line through Manly.
The Cowboys as well. They have the bye this week, so that's an easy 2 points.
But I think a tough run home.
But a tough run home. I think the Sharks are more desperate and are actually more comfortable position playing against the Cowboys, so I'll take them over them.
Dolphins, a coin flip, and then the Penrith Panthers.
Yeah, so Cowboys, I think, again, are going to be unlucky and just miss the 8, and that's their own fault for having a bad start to the season.
Parramatta, who are currently 9th right now.
They're missing out. They've got too hard of a run home.
Toughest run home.
Yes, they end on the bye, but they have the Broncos, the Roosters, and the Panthers. And all those teams are vying for a top 4 or top 8 spot.
I could see the Panthers in the back end maybe resting some players.
And Parramatta do have their number. So that's maybe a winnable game, but even then, they're going to need people above them to lose.
So say you put a line through them.
It doesn't matter who makes the 8 at the end of the day. It's going to be probably a 2-team. Like I said, it's a 2-horse race again. Like seriously, these teams are making up the numbers, and it's something that the NRL needs to look at. Like obviously the balance, the discrepancy between the teams.
Look, there was that year that Canberra went on a run and went all the way to the grand final.
Yeah, I mean it does happen.
You might see a team like the Warriors, like the Sharks, that make that play for the final. You don't know on any given Sunday. It's not like, again, Penrith are very convincing as a team. The Broncos, they're a team that can lose to the Gold Coast Titans. And they've done that before this year.
Canberra, currently running 5th, minus 74 point differential.
Yeah, I don't know how they're even...
How are they there?
I haven't even noticed them win all year. They haven't won a game by more than 10 points this year.
And they just scraped in against the Tigers.
And shout out to Rugby League Guru. He said they should make a shirt Raiders 1-12. Because they've only been winning their games 1-12. It's been very tight games. And they've gone under the radar the whole year. They could still bounce out of the 8 from 5th, though. But I don't see them bouncing out. Look, if you look at their run home, they got Melbourne. Again, not full strength. Bulldogs, they should win. Just by that alone, they should comfortably be in the 8.
Because they're already on 30 points, they only need one win to finish the season, and they'll most likely make the 8.
So Canberra's a lock for me for the 8.
But really, looking at the rest of the teams in the 8, I think the ladder stays the same. Maybe a few shifts in the way it's actually positioned, but Newcastle, the Rabbitohs, and the Sharks, I think all make the 8. They have an easier run home than the people below them, and they've already got the points ahead and point differential advantage over the other teams.
Okay, so you're going to go ladder to relatively stay the same. Canberra 5th, Sharks 6th, may change. 7th, Knights.
7 and 8th, Newcastle or the Rabbitohs.
And the Rabbitohs.
Just because Newcastle are on 27 points, they've had that draw.
And if you look at the run home for the Rabbitohs, it's the Dragons, it's the Knights, a bye, and then the Roosters.
So they're going to end on 30 points easily. Minimum, most likely 32.
They need to turn up this week.
Out of those bottom 4 teams in the 8, South Sydney's probably the only one that could do some damage.
Make a run.
They can make a run from 8th.
They know
So
that
can
too.
the Sharks, though. I think they've got enough quality players.
No.
If the Sharks match up first week against a Newcastle, they can win that. Then they can match up against the Warriors, out the backdoor Warriors. They're in a prelim final, the Sharks.
I agree with you. I would take the Rabbitohs and the Knights to make the 8, but I wouldn't count out the Cowboys just yet. With that bye, and if they have a strong finish towards the end of the season,
Well, really,
I'd put a smoky on the Cowboys.
That Sharks, not this week, the week after.
That's a
Sharks
big
versus
game.
Cowboys. Whoever wins that game makes the 8. That's essentially how it will go. And then the same will go probably for Newcastle versus the Rabbitohs. Whoever wins that game, they guarantee themselves a spot in the 8. So really, this week, if you want to make the 8, you've got to win and hope results go your way. And then you're going to match up against someone vying for a top 8 spot as well. So the next couple games or next couple weeks could get very interesting.
It's heating up.
For me, as a fan, is making the 8 enough?
It's better than not making it.
As a fan of a club, if I'm a Bulldogs fan right now, I'd love for the Bulldogs to be in the 8. Yes,
Just to make the 8.
It'd affirm that your club's heading in the right direction. It doesn't mean you're going to go to the grand final. But yeah, I think making the 8 is enough. And it saves coaches' careers.
It's not giving anyone false hope that they're going to win the comp, but at least it's a positive sign towards next season.
More so if you're a fan, you'd love your club to make the top 4. You get that double chance. You know what I mean?
2 finals games at least.
So yeah, I'd rather make the top 4. But I mean, that's why Melbourne could bounce out of the 4, and we'll touch on that hopefully next week as it starts to heat up a bit more. But talking about a bit of controversy, okay? In the NRLW, we saw this happen over the weekend, okay? Kennedy Cherrington dumped an opposing player on her head. It looked terrible. I was watching a replay of it. It looked like a tombstone pile driver. Head straight onto the floor. Now, I've seen Kennedy Cherrington. She's one of the faces of the NRLW. We've seen her on TikTok. She dances all the time. I love seeing it on TikTok. But I think this is going to see her spend a long time on the sidelines.
Well, we don't talk about the NRLW much. Personally, I don't watch it much.
Yeah.
From what I hear, most coming out of the NRLW is that they want equal pay. If you want equal pay, you're going to get equal suspensions as well. And if there is equal suspensions, consistency across men and women's game, she's looking at a minimum 8 weeks on the sideline.
I got to agree with you. We've seen spear tackles get anywhere from 5 to 10 weeks over the years in the NRL. This is a direct dump on the head. She probably could have broken her neck. Look how she's landed.
Very dangerous
right?
tackle.
You can say, look, there was no intent or whatever it be. At the end of the day, she's landed on her head. It's reckless. I think she's going to be looking at 8 to 10 weeks. And, 8 weeks, that's what, 2 NRLW seasons at this point?
No, I think they play more than that now.
They play a 9-round season, so if she gets suspended for 9 weeks, that's a whole NRLW season. She's gone.
She could be spending an NRLW season on the sideline, which is not good for Kennedy.
That's a whole year of your career down the drain, Kennedy.
So that's what I want to know. Are NRLW suspensions going to be the same as the males? Or taking into account their
shortened season.
Do they suspend them for less games? It's a fair question to ask.
Well, then again, saying equal pay, equal suspensions. You're going to get the same as Travis Burns got for clotheslining a player. So if he got 9 weeks for a clothesline, you're probably going to get 10 weeks for a pile driver. It's just the way it works.
A lot of people in the media have come out and said, look, she was very remorseful after it. There was no intent. So, look, she goes to the judiciary this week. I'd like to see what happens.
In her defence, there was no serious injury. So
luckily,
yeah, there was no serious injury that transpired. So you hope she doesn't spend too much time.
I mean, she laughed it off and ran off the field like nothing happened.
She was immediately sent off. Female referee just said go, marching orders. She was jogging off. She knew she was in the wrong, but I mean, I guess I just want to see what she gets. I think it's going to be at least 8 to 10 matches.
I'm saying it's definitely below 5. The opposing coach came out and said there's nothing wrong. That's not that bad. She's remorseful.
It wouldn't make a lot of sense.
And then the fact that you brought up, they do have shortened seasons. So if you do give her a lengthy suspension, that's a whole year of her career done.
Okay, but something that no one's talking about, and we'll talk about it here on the JBK show. But like every week we do our top fives. You can catch our top fives on our socials. At John Bernard K, at Picklebet, and at the JBK Show on YouTube. This week's top five, coming off the back of Kennedy Cherrington's reckless pile driving tackle, we're going with top 5 send-offs in rugby league history. Starting with number 5, Greg Bird in 2014 delivers a knee to the head. This is absolutely brutal. This guy's just getting up to play the ball. Greg Bird just delivers a knee straight to the head. If this happened in the UFC and the opponent has his hands on the ground, it's a disqualification. This is not even allowed in the UFC. He's kneed him straight to the head. I think he only got a 10-match suspension. If he did this in today's game, I think he's sitting out for a season, a knee to the head like this.
Watching this back, that's a disgusting knee to the head. It's intentional. He's going for his head. Instant send-off. I think it was worthy of a 10-match suspension. I'm surprised it's only 10, like you said.
Okay.
But that brings us to number 4. Clint Newton with a flying elbow, getting himself a 12-match suspension on Ashton Sims. He knocked Ashton Sims out, instantly sent off.
He came in with intent there. He threw the elbow straight in.
Now, Clint Newton is the current CEO of the RLPA. I don't think he was concerned too much about player safety back then when he was throwing elbows. Now, the best part about this, Ashton Sims, after being knocked out, he got 6 stitches. Came back on in the second half and finished the game.
The game's not the same. There was no HIA back then.
I don't think it existed. That just shows you how amazing the gladiators were back then. You could get knocked out, receive stitches, get back on the field, finish the game, son.
It's nice to see that's the person leading the RLPA. He was down in the trenches with them, scrapping with it, and now he's in the more professional role. It's nice to see. I back Clint Newton.
I didn't know he had it in him to throw elbows. Maybe he can do that now with the current media backlash.
Okay, number 3, we're going with Ben Flower in the Super League. Now, this went viral on social media at the time, but looking back on it, it's disgusting. Okay, he knocks his player out onto the floor cold. He's there lying, and then he goes in for a second punch to the head while he's on the floor. He was immediately sent off. I think he sat out a lengthy part of the season. He was banned for 6 months, right? Which was deservedly so. Now, if this happened in the UFC, again, Herb Dean's putting a stop to it. He doesn't get to go for that second punch on the floor.
He jumps on top of the other player after he gets knocked out first time.
I think that's actually in a grand final. That was in a Super League grand final. So in the first couple of minutes, you can see. In the first couple of minutes, you can send off.
It
was a disgraceful act.
Why would you want to do that in a grand final where you immediately go down to 12 men in the first few minutes of a grand final? Regardless, he spent 6 months on the sideline, and I think that was because of the second punch.
Bang, cops one to the head. The guy drops immediately to the floor. He notices him knocked out on the floor and then makes sure to finish the job. I think Ben Flower just watched too much UFC. He was a bit too influenced before this game. Maybe he watched John Jones or something before the game.
That second effort was what got him the 6 months. That's
so
ridiculous.
the first punch, that's maybe about 5-6 weeks.
Yeah.
Then knocked out on the floor.
Second one is intent, and that's 6 months.
Talking about terrible punches, though, that takes us to number 2. Danny Williams, 2004 coward punch on Luke O'Neill.
This one flies under the radar.
No one really talks about this. I think because of the severity of it. Now, Danny Williams, he got head slammed. In response, gets back up and absolutely coward punches Luke O'Neill. This got him an 18-month suspension. Now, if this happened in today's game, he would probably get life. And really, a coward punch in the prime of King's Cross, Danny Williams is looking at 8 years in prison.
Yeah, that would have spent it. He would have spent it. If that happened on the street, you're right, he's going to prison. But he did it on the field. This poor bloke, he was just that marker running to the next play. He didn't even know it was coming. Bang!
It was a high shot on Danny Williams. It took offence.
It was, but the high shot, Gavin Badger put it on report straight away.
Yeah, of course he did. But the thing is, obviously, the player was actually he was turning away. So Luke O'Neill was turning away following the play, and then he's copped it. So you can see it was a vicious hit by Luke O'Neill. Who I played with in under 20s.
There you go.
I mean, he probably didn't know, he didn't foresee that coward punch. But this is the definition of a coward punch. Danny Williams, 18-month suspension, got off lucky, in my opinion.
18 months?
18 matches, sorry. 18
matches. 18 matches, which is very lucky.
Very lucky, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay. That brings us to number 1, the GOAT of on-field dramas. John Hopewadi coming in again with a flying elbow. This put an end to John Hopewadi's Manly career. He comes out of the line looking for Keith Galloway. Stiff elbow to the head. I don't know if Keith Galloway passed his HIA after this either, but John Hopewadi just wanted to get him. He came up out of the line, Steve Maddie style, and straight elbow to the head. Didn't care for him at all. This, again, like I said, put an end to his career. It was a 17-match suspension. Manly terminated his contract straight away, and that was the end of John Hopewadi at Manly. Deservedly so, yes. But again, gives us a John Hopewadi highlight.
I mean, Keith Galloway, I feel sorry for him. He could have been doing anything there. He might have touched the ball, not touched the ball, John Hopewadi was coming out for blood. He launched himself with his forearm up like that. He jumped up like he was going to Superman punch somebody.
And threw his whole body at him.
And just connected, elbow straight to the head. Keith Galloway, you poor bastard, you were knocked out.
Good sport. Keith Galloway did a good stint after that as well in rugby league. It wasn't just the end of him there, but that's a straight elbow to the head.
And John was playing on the wing, and he's coming from his wing.
I think maybe even transition maybe into like a second rower.
But he's got number 5 on his back, so...
He's come in searching for blood, and I know CTE is a hot topic. I think Keith Galloway is going to fall victim to that.
Dairy Farmers a sponsor there on his elbow too. I don't think that's a good look for Dairy Farmers. But again, that's why we love John Hopewadi. He provides us with those highlight reels on the field. And that is the top 5 send-offs in rugby league history. Again, you can check us out on socials at Picklebet and at the JBK Show on YouTube. That's our top 5 for the week. Nick, AFL, massive upset for Collingwood this week.
Look, Collingwood were very unlucky last week. Hawthorn, I don't know what went wrong. They blindsided us. Nick Dacos, probably out for 6 weeks now with a knee fracture.
That could be their season.
That could be their season. Collingwood could be fucked. I mean, that was probably the worst day of the year for me personally, seeing Collingwood lose by 30 points to Hawthorn, who are a subpar team.
Because you took Collingwood 30 plus.
I took 30 plus, as I do every week. Usually it gets me in the money, but unlucky last week. But looking ahead to AFL Round 22, Collingwood versus Geelong, MCG, Friday night. It doesn't get bigger than this. Geelong are desperate for a win. They need to make the 8. Collingwood, yes, we're 8 points clear of second, sitting atop at number 1, but we're without our best player. So it's going to be a tough win. If I was betting with my mind, I'd probably take Geelong. But only idiots do that. I bet with my heart. I'm taking Collingwood 30 plus, and I'm rolling again. Dacos 30 plus disposals. Not Nick Dacos, Josh Dacos 30 plus disposals. In his brother's absence, he's going to step up. I really think Collingwood can get it done. They're going to upset the AFL world by winning this game.
Gamble responsibly. That's probably a stupid bet. That's not. I'd probably definitely take Geelong. They've got a lot more to play for.
A lot more to play for, 100%. Look, I think Collingwood already got the minor premiership.
They've got the minor premiership down pat, but they want to win by as many points.
More hungry.
Well, what about the top 8? What about the top 8?
The top 8 is getting pretty tight.
Is it as contentious as the NRL?
I think even more so. I think
the
AFL's a more open competition than the NRL this year, and the top 8, if you look at it. Currently, the Sydney Swans and Geelong Cats are out of the 8. Carlton, GWS and St Kilda, they're the team that they're going to go after. And if you really look at it, Essendon are a good chance as well. But if I happen to put my money on who's going to make the top 8 this year, I think the Swans and Geelong just make it back in.
I thought you said the Swans were just out. They can't make it.
They're currently out of the 8, but they'll win the next few games. Their run home's a bit easier.
Swans have come good. Good.
So if you really good run home. So I think GWS and St Kilda, unfortunately, will miss out on the 8. Essendon will make some noise, and GWS will as well, but I just don't think they'll win enough games to make the 8. And Geelong, I think they've got the players, so do the Swans, to make the 8 and finish the season strong. So, again, I think more open competition. A team from that bottom 4 could do some damage later in the season, but GWS, I'm wearing their jersey, but I feel sorry for you. You're going to drop out.
Jeez, Essendon and GWS don't see them making it.
No.
There you go. Okay, well, that brings us to previewing the NRL round this week. Again, heading into the finals, it's heating up. Every round counts now. We do our tips and picks each week. You can check us out on the JBK Show on YouTube. But this week, starting off with Manly and Panthers, who are you taking?
I think I said earlier, Manly are terrible. Without Tom Trbojevic, I don't think they can win a game. They struggled against the Dragons. The Roosters didn't play that well last week, and they lost pretty convincingly to the Roosters. So you take Manly here. So you take Penrith.
I'm taking Penrith as well. I think they're going to be too convincing. Manly, if we've counted them out of the 8, I don't think they're going to get past the Panthers. They haven't been convincing in attack. It's really just Daly Cherry Evans and everyone else. If the Penrith Panthers keep up this attacking style of footy that they're playing, that seems to be working for them, they're bouncing around the ball, I think it's an easy Penrith win. Penrith?
Mate, I've got to try and catch up to you guys, so I'm going for the upset.
No.
So I'm going Manly this week. It's at Brookvale. You know, it's always tough to beat Manly at Brookvale. So, you know, Penrith...
How do you see them winning, though? Who's going to score
It's
their
at
tries?
Brookie. It's at Brookie.
It's
You
at
never know.
Brookvale Oval. If they get off to... Look, I'm still not convinced Penrith are playing at their best. You know, some of the tries they scored against Melbourne last week weren't great tries. So, I mean, if Manly can get up on them early and then start chasing, Penrith have always been a team that doesn't chase well when they're behind. So,
I think they'll need
like I said, I need to catch up to you guys. So I've got to tip a couple of upsets.
They'll need some referee intervention to win
Okay,
the
the
game.
Sharks or the Titans?
Again, I think the Sharks are hot. They were the team who I thought they were going to be earlier in the season.
They're coming off one win. Let's relax.
It's a one win against a good South Sydney team. They played really, really well last week. Across the park, their fullback who came in was at Trindle. He played extremely well, and I think Nico Hines, he's up there for the Dally M, so I think he wants to go back-to-back, so expect him to have a couple good games. I'll take them 13 plus against the Titans. I tipped the Titans, I think, last week. They're terrible.
But the Titans are a team that can upset you. They've done it to the Broncos throughout the year. When they're on, They play good attacking footy. Their defence is what's lacklustre.
It's abysmal.
And they look much better when they have Jaden Campbell in there. He just provides that spark for him. You saw him. He's looking for an intercept. I just think he needs to be in the side. And I think Blocker came out and said on the call, like, they play much better footy when he's in the team.
Okay, but who are you taking?
Again, I'm not going to take the Titans. I'm going to take Cronulla because there's a lot more to play for going into the finals.
Okay.
So I'm taking Cronulla.
Dad, Sharks or Titans?
Tino's back this week, which might make a difference, but I'm going to go for the Sharks. They've got more to play for. Gold Coast season's over, so they just make.
They need a miracle to win.
Okay, the Broncos or the Eels?
This is at the Gabba. Why have the Broncos been playing their games at an AFL ground? I don't know. I've noticed that a couple of times this season.
Because of the soccer.
Is it because of the soccer?
Jeez,
getting shunned for women's soccer. Poor Brisbane.
He's not negotiating too well on behalf of the NRL.
The Broncos fans would be filthy. But in saying that, I think the Eels, yes, they have to win. But if you look at their performance last week against the Dragons, they're not a good team. They don't have the players to overcome a good Brisbane team. I don't know if Adam Reynolds is going to be back this week. He's still questionable. But if Adam Reynolds plays, I'm taking Brisbane in a convincing win.
I'm going to throw a spanner in the works, and it's going to throw a spanner in everyone's top 8 predictions just for this week. I think Para step up to the plate this week and beat the Broncos. They've done it before.
It's in Brisbane.
Every time these teams come together, you don't know who's going to win. Go look at the past results. It's almost 1-for-1. And I'm going to take Parramatta. I think they're going to step up trying to make a play for the finals. Brad Arthur would have put it to him, said, we need to win every game from here on out. It's going to be a big game nonetheless. I'm going to take Para for an upset, and I'm catching up to you. Who you taking?
Regan Campbell-Gillard's still out, so I'm going for the Broncos.
Yeah, they won't have the forwards to shape up against Payne Haas.
What
No way.
I guess we'll see. The Rabbitohs or the Dragons? I think this is a resounding Rabbitohs. Yeah. Everyone on the panel here.
Dragons have mailed in this season, so take the Rabbitohs.
Ben Hunt's asking to leave. He doesn't really want to be there. Doesn't want to rock up to training, I'm assuming.
Rabbitohs to rebound. Take them 13+. Probably be the easiest bet of the week.
Playing in Cairns, maybe leave Ben Hunt in Queensland.
Yeah, might not be a bad way to go. Okay. The Tigers or the Warriors?
Again, this is another stupid scheduling one. This game's in New Zealand. It's a West Tigers home game in New Zealand.
Yeah, this was a thank you from the West Tigers to the Warriors for them coming over and playing all their games during COVID.
Okay,
in the situation, more of a thank you.
In the situation,
and a lot of the Warriors fans have come out and said they want it to be known that they're very thankful for that because it's a sold-out game in New Zealand.
I'm saying in the situation where the Tigers were vying for a top 8 spot and so were the Warriors, and this is a waste of a home game for the Tigers. You're taking it to the Warriors. You're taking it to New Zealand. It's an unfair advantage for New Zealand. Everyone knows you don't tip against New Zealand in New Zealand, so I'll take the Warriors.
And it's the Tigers. This should be Warriors everywhere. A home game for the Warriors playing against a lacklustre West Tigers. They looked okay last week. They look best when they have Api Coruscant and Luke Brooks playing for them. But again, I think Warriors are going to be too strong.
Dad?
I'm trying to catch up to you guys again. I'm going to tip the Tigers in an upset.
I mean, if Luke Brooks and Coruscant show up, you saw against last week against Canberra, they can score tries. So it's not the worst thing. The Warriors can make errors as well.
Look, I mean, Warriors have been consistent this year, but every now and then they do end up playing poorly in a game and losing a match that they should win. So this could be one for me, and I might be able to catch up to you guys.
Okay, the Roosters or the Dolphins?
I mean, the Dolphins played okay last week, but the Roosters at home, trying to at least mathematically stay in the race, you take the Roosters.
The Dolphins have been disappointing towards the back end of the season. Defensively, they haven't been showing up. There's been a lot of high-scoring games. Again, the Roosters, on paper, should win this game. But in attack, they've been very poor. They haven't been playing up to the Roosters' standards of previous years. But again, so much on the line going into the finals. They need to do it for their fans. I'm taking the Roosters.
Dad? Me too, Roosters. Yeah.
Okay, resounding Roosters. The Storm or the Raiders? Now, these teams have a history. Canberra usually do a number on the Melbourne Storm. They've got their number. We've said that earlier today. But again,
the winner of this game probably makes the top 4. And Jarome, who's again a player that's questionable to play.
I'm taking Melbourne.
In Melbourne, I never want to tip against Melbourne. I actually hate tipping against Melbourne. I felt dirty last week tipping Penrith over Melbourne. So with top 4 on the line, I think Canberra Raiders are one of the most overrated teams in the comp. The fact that they're even vying for a top 4 spot is truly amazing. I don't know how they've gotten this far. So you take Melbourne here in a convincing win.
And you're taking Melbourne?
Yeah, Melbourne Storm.
Okay, that's a Melbourne. Amy Park, Melbourne W. Last game of the round, the Knights versus the Bulldogs.
I've jumped on the Knights bandwagon. I'm riding them all the way to the top 8, so I'm taking the Knights.
I'd like to see the Knights make the finals. And again, Kalen Ponga's playing some unbelievable footy. The Bulldogs just aren't there. They're not going to, there's talks that Luke Thompson's made himself available for first grade this week. I don't think that's going to be enough. I'm taking the Knights here as well.
I mean, as the Bulldogs, I don't think it's possible that they can win the wooden spoon. So I don't even care if they lose anymore. So at least let Newcastle have their fun. Let them make the 8. Let Adam O'Brien maybe re-sign, make the finals.
Yeah.
So, Dad, who are you taking?
Cut him some slack.
Look, I think it'll be a tight game. I don't think there's a big difference between the teams on paper. But obviously maybe the Kalen Ponga factor. We'll see the Knights at home win this one.
So that's a Knights all round. And the Cowboys have a much needed bye going into the finals. Again, it's heating up. Who's going to make the 8? We don't know. And it's getting around that exciting time of year, finals footy, where everyone's watching. And it's around the corner. So make sure you're staying tuned.
I mean, if you're the Roosters, you lose this week, season's over. If you're the Raiders this week, you lose, you're not making the top 4.
Out of the 4.
The Eels as well, if you lose this week, probably season's over. So
a lot to play for this week.
I mean, big games.
And it's heating up. But that's our tips and picks for the week. Make sure you stay tuned to our socials. They won't change. I know the team sheets are coming out, but that will most likely be our tips. I'm catching up to Nick on 104. I'm on 98. Dad, 92. Loser has to get the 40-year-old version, full body wax. It's going to be painful, but it'll make for some good content. So stay tuned for that. Now, we haven't covered much of this, but I want to touch on it. The FIFA Women's World Cup. Okay, we were overseas, so we didn't get to see the kickoff of it. It's taken Australia by storm. The Matildas are going deep. Okay, they just beat Denmark yesterday. Okay, 2-0. We haven't really been keeping too much up with it, but the penalty shootouts, we've been seeing a lot of it on socials. And credit to the female soccer. A lot of people are watching Australia. I think someone showed that they had beaten the NRL Grand Final in ratings last night, which is massive. 3.2 million people watching him. But something's got to be said about the penalties.
I did find time to watch the USA versus Sweden penalties.
Megan Rapinoe bowing out in the penalties, that was rough.
And this is one of the most interesting things ever, because you watch it and you think, okay, professional athletes, they're probably going to, smash it through. Some of the females, they hit it beautifully. They're top right corner, bottom right corner, top left corner. You think, okay, this is amazing. This is like the men's. Then some women step up to the plate and they hit the ball and they rocket it into the 30th row. I'm thinking, how did you do that? And okay, you see one player do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's common to the men's, they hit a post or go over the top. I've seen some.
Look, I'm not saying it's easy to kick a penalty. I mean, you saw in the EPL Community Shield, Man City missed a bunch of penalties. But it's the way they miss. It's wide right, completely wide to the right. You see Megan Rapinoe, who's supposed to be one of the best players.
Straight over.
Rocketed it straight over the post.
Came under a lot of criticism too from a lot of people in the United States.
Deservingly. If you have blue hair, you got to rocket that thing to the back of the net. If you're hitting
like Neymar, when Neymar dyed his hair pink, you got to be putting that bottom right corner.
You're putting that straight into the back of the net.
Yeah.
Instead, she's kicked it straight into the 30th row, and everyone's saying, "Okay, Megan, what's going on here? You just cost your team a spot in the finals."
I'm just saying, there's uncharacteristic. A lot of missed penalties over the weekend. And a lot of them are going to penalties because there's a lot of draws. But it's nice to see the Matildas get the 2-0. They go up against France or Morocco next. Again, I personally wouldn't bet on it. It's kind of like a coin flip. It's not like, going up against a France and it's Mbappe and it's quality players. You don't really know which way these games will go. So it's very hard to bet. I'd maybe like to go 0 or half time. I think that's a top bet.
Judging by the way, there's been so many low-scoring games.
There's been a lot of low-scoring games.
Not a bad bet. But that takes us to an end. Special shout-out, FIBA Basketball World Cup's coming up. Australia do have a good team. Canada has a good team. USA has a very underwhelming team.
A very underwhelming team. You've got such a great pool of talent to pick from in the US.
No one wants to play.
It's like you can pick an NBA All-Star team, but no one wants to play in the FIBA.
So that's kind of a bit of a downer on the tournament. But if you're an Australian, you're a good chance of winning. So if you're an Australian, maybe watch the tournament. We can do some damage. Keep an eye out for
it. We've got some heavy hitters playing in the Australian team. No Ben Simmons though, which is unfortunate. But still, nonetheless, some NBA stars playing. But that's a wrap for us at Prime Time today. Make sure you follow us on social media at Picklebet and at the JBK Show on YouTube. And that's a wrap. Take it easy.